Good evening, everybody. How are we doing? Hopefully, all okay. Welcome back to the DB show. Back with our usual Sunday 7 p.m. As you know, we're actually a minute early or 30 seconds early today. But yeah, we are gonna get into it. Today is the 19th of July, almost August, and we're gonna get into it. Get into our QPR news. Now, obviously, not much has been said in the last couple of days, or I should say week, since our last live stream. But hopefully you're all okay. And we got Paul in the chat. Hey DB, how are you? Sorry, ain't been in the last couple of streams. Ain't been well. Well, that's fine, mate. Hopefully you're okay. Hopefully it's nothing serious. And it's good to see you in the chat. And all the best, hopefully all the best for you. And hopefully you can catch up on some stuff from the channel. Nick's in the chat though. Hi DB, hope you're good. I'm good, man. How are you, Nick? Good to see you in the chat as always. So yeah, let's get into before we talk about the transfer news and everything that we usually get into. First thing first, I want to talk about our Austrian tour. I say tour, it wasn't really a tour, but I'm gonna say tour because it pretty much, you know, we had 2 games there. So we had 2 games obviously in Austria. Obviously we not sold, but did a quick transfer a couple of weeks ago with 2 keepers going out and 2 keepers coming in. One coming in on a permanent basis, one coming in on loan, and obviously one going out on a permanent basis and one going out on loan. Now, we didn't really get to see the 2 keepers in Austria, the Austrian tour, but there must be reasons for it. Now, it could either be to do with fitness terms, where they still want to get fitness, but for me, the Austrian tour, you know, you see a bit of stuff that you like, but then you see rest of it as in what's going on, you know? And preseason's not ended yet, but those 2 games were, you know, we learned a lot. We did. Now, obviously, whether it was taken seriously or not with the games, there was mixed emotions from all of you guys on the watch-alongs about both games. So, obviously, the first game where we drew 0-0, no goals scored, and there were certain performances on players that I really enjoyed. I really did. I think one of the standout players in that first game was Isaac, the central midfielder. Now, Isaac obviously has gone over with the team to basically have a run around, see how he does. I don't know whether to say he's going to be a part of Julian's plans next season. You know, there's a big chance that he could be, where obviously he's had experience in European football at a young age, but he's also done really well in the development squad, coming in obviously last season and pretty much working hard, trying to get the game time as he can. You know, he came on flipping was played his first game for QPR last season at the end at home. Now, obviously, seeing him in pre-season has been a breath of fresh air in that midfield. You know, depending on how Julian wants to play, I feel like he played 2 formations in Austria. He played 4-3-3 and a 4-2-3-1. He did. The first game, obviously, it looked like he played a 4-3-3, and then obviously in the second half, it changed to a 4-4-2, or it could have been a bit different. As far as I'm looking at it, it looked like a 4-4-2. But the first game, first half, 4-3-3 was pretty decent. You know, we saw a good midfield, I think, in the sense of Harvey Vale, Madsen, and Isaac. And I believe, honestly, that could be our best midfield for next season if we do have the same midfield by the start of the season, you know? The reason why I say Isaac is because we have been stuck in this whole midfield issue where we always kind of whinge about the defensive side of midfield. Now, obviously, we've got Varane, but I'm starting to think Varane is not a defensive midfielder. I'm starting to think he's more of a box-to-box or a ball-winning midfielder. And I know a lot of people are saying a ball-winning midfielder is the same thing as a defensive midfielder. You know, Sanfield, who was there, and Varane both always came back into a defensive shape with the centre-backs when we was defending. Now, Isak looked a bit different because he wasn't doing that in pre-season. What he was doing was being a very good ball-winning midfielder. He was in that central area, and it was really enjoyable to watch him play. You know, passing-wise, absolutely brilliant. He had the ability to get past players really well. He also picked out some good passes onto the wings to Sato, and I believe it was Daniel Benny in that first game, which was really enjoyable to watch. Now, obviously, I'm not going to big him up that much because I don't want people to think, oh yeah, he's going to be a great player for us next season and all that. Let's take our time with it, see what he does. But I'm very impressed with his ability on that ball in midfield. Now, like I was saying, Varane, you know, I like Varane, I really do. I think he's an exceptional player, but I feel like the fans are slowly getting annoyed by him, really annoyed by him. And I wouldn't say this in a major way, in the sense of disappointment, but I still like him. I think he's a good midfielder. I just feel like there's a difference in play between Marty and Julian, and he just needs to get his track back onto that performances that he did pretty much at the start of the season. You know, he's a very exceptional player, Varane is, but right now, if I had to choose one midfielder in that middle, I think Isak wins it right now with what I've seen, not just in the first game but in the second game as well in Austria. It looked very great for him in that middle, working with Madsen, so big applause to him for that. Now, there wasn't much to say in that first game because, like I said, it was a bit boring with goals, but we did see improvements in Sato's play. Daniel Benny looked good at times. Amadou and Benge, as always, in defense, and I would say Boy Kemper showed a glimpse of what he can do as well. You know, you got Boy Kemper on the left. You know, Burrell, we're all going to be looking forward to seeing him what he does next season. Kone as well. You know, I'm hoping Kone breaks his goal scoring record from last season, in the sense of not club record or league record, but obviously he scored only about 9-10 goals. Hoping for a bit more. You know, there's obviously other players that I would say looked okay. You know, coming on to the second half, we saw Obuku, who looked really impressive, and obviously some of the youngsters as well in Brew and Saniulu. Still a lot to learn. Obviously they've signed professional contracts now, and they're going to be a chance there to see if they can get into that bench. You know, there's a reason why we've brought them on tour with us, and there's a reason why they've signed professional contracts, is because Julian probably sees something in them, not just the back team or Christian Nuri. Julian probably sees something pretty impressive with them. Not saying he's going to be a Doku or a Rafina or a next Due. You know, let's take our time with it. You know, I know Julian has brought up some great players in France, but this is a different league, different whole matter of timing of where competition is much more higher, I think, in the championship. So yeah, but that's the first game. In the second game, obviously, I think what we should talk about is Amadou's freakish goal again, which he did, which was a bit of a shocker. I can't believe you start talking about in the lift about going to a crossing session and then score a banger like that. You know, we've seen it against Leicester. You know, he has scored 2 goals last season, but that banger against Leicester was obviously there again on just before the weekend, you know, against the other team in the second. Now, apart from the goal, obviously a lot of people said that it's still a disappointing game to play against when they're in the 4th tier of that country. And look, let's be honest, right? When you go to these preseason friendlies, you're not gonna work 100% all the time. You know, that first half was really good for us. I really enjoyed watching it, but the second half did drop a little. But depending on what Julian said to them, don't work too hard. Maybe just gradually work the ball forward and go from there. But I would sit here and say it was a more enjoyable match, the second one, than the first one. You know, we got to see different formation, different style of play. You know, Burrell looked really good up front, scoring the goal at the start. Obviously, Amadou and Benge scoring that second, I believe it was. You know, we got to see a Kone goal as well on the penalty spot. But I think the impressive things right now, Sato looks really, really good. Better than last season. And I know he's going to be a key player for us next season, or this season, I should say. Sato is. I like Sato, I really do. But I think we saw a different game to him in those preseason friendlies than we have in the league last season. You know, a lot of time he's used to cut in from the outside, but he's more cutting inside now, into the middle. So it looks really good on that behalf. And obviously, I've already said this, Sato, I think, would preferably be better in the middle as well. So you have that. Harvey Vale, as always, looks great. You know, you had Paul Smith, you know, looks great as well. You know, there's certain players, obviously, that needs to obviously be assessed a bit more during pre-season. We got a couple more games, obviously, coming up in England. And, yeah, we won't be live for one of them, but the rest of them, I think the next game we won't be live for, because obviously it starts at 1 PM. And the rest of the games we will be live for. So I'm looking forward to that Millwall game at home in the Carabao Cup to see what happens. Hopefully we get some more news on transfers and someone in before that. You know, we've got a good team as it is still right now, but we still are weak in certain areas. I've said this many times. You know, if Amadou is going to play right back, then I think right back might be fine. But I still think, in my opinion, right side probably needs a bit more depth. And the midfield as well. So yeah, but that's my observation of the Austrian tour. You know, there's a lot of things that I could say. I'm not gonna go with all the negatives, but you know, I'm not too fussed about preseason, in my opinion. You know, until I see that first game on how we are, then that's when I'll do my judging a bit more. I know preseason is very important, but I have my own thoughts on it as well. You know, they're not gonna go too crazy on it, because injuries is a big thing. You know, if they get people injured straight away, it's not going to look good, and it's not going to be good on the fans as well. The fans will moan. So yeah, let's have a look at the comments before we get into the rest of the news. Ronnie Edwards links to Burnley. We'll be getting into that in a second. Seed, good to see you, mate. Paul, get in there, thank you. Just been some mental health shit. Glad we got Seller off the book. Yeah, Seller's gone. We'll talk about that as well in a bit. But Paul, listen, mate, honestly, take a breather, take your time. Anything to do with mental health, I'll be honest, if you ever want to DM me, honestly, because I know what it feels. You know, mental health is a serious situation. I'll be honest with you, it's good to talk about. It's good to talk about. Talk about what you need. Don't keep it in, if that makes sense, yeah? So, Paul, get better soon. Hopefully all is good, and just breathe in and out properly. I promise you, there's gonna be better days. Honestly, you're gonna have shit days and you're gonna have good days, you know. So Paul, hopefully all the best, mate. I really do say that, you know, coming from a person that has mental health issues as well. You know, I wouldn't say that usually, but I know how it feels, mate. I really do. Stay strong, brother. So yeah, Nick says things seem to be going well. Hopefully we'll get some midfielders as a priority with cash from Seller. Well, if you think about it, Seller's not the only cash that we've got a bit more from other sales as well, so we'll talk about that again. Let me just finish off with the comments. Nick would like a right back, but don't know cash wise if we can get one in cheap. I think cash wise we shouldn't really worry about right now, to be honest. Teddy says, you know that Manson guy, I want him at Millwall. Would you take him for Mill? I have to, I don't know if I know him, so I'll have to have a look at who you're on about first before I do any judgment. Manson, I can't remember any Manson at Millwall. I'll have a look. Isaac deserves a chance on the first team. If not, go out on loan. If not, Paul says. Seed says we need to sign Bobby Poynton from Bradford, class player. You got to remember, depending on how old he is, he'll just be put into the development squad. So yeah, Paul, yeah, that was funny hearing that. Then Mbengue scores from across. What's happened to Norrington? Scott says Norrington's gone back to Sheffield. He's not coming back to QPR unless there is a big change. So yeah. Teddy says you play in Gillingham. Are we? I don't know. Are we playing Gillingham? Let me see what the matches are saying first. So we got Wickham on Tuesday at 1 o'clock, which we won't be live for. We got Florentina on Saturday next week at 3 o'clock. We will be live for that. And I believe there is one more. There's 2 more games there is, but it hasn't popped up on here. So I don't know what's going on. I'll have to have a look at it again. So yeah. Chip off the old block says, even DB, hope you're well. I'm good, Chip off the block, man. Thank you, man. Much appreciated. Teddy says, that guy you're glazing in midfield. That guy you're glazing in midfield, Teddy says. That Manson guy. Manson. Glazing in midfield. Manson. Take for him. Who's he played for? Millwall. Manson. Madsen. Are you talking about our player, Madsen? Oh, M-A-D-S-E-N. Sorry, I might be saying this wrong. Sorry, it's not Manson. It's Madsen. M-A-D-S-E-N or M. Sorry, I hear you saying Madsen's not going. At the end of the day, Madsen is not going. Madsen is our player. Honestly, I love Madsen. He's brilliant. So yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about that, Teddy, man. I do apologize. Paul says, it does, mate. Thank you very much, DB. Very kind of you to say. Have got someone I'm talking to at the moment, and she's been... No worries, mate. Honestly, listen. Anyone that does suffer with... Honestly, bless you, man. Honestly, because it is tough. It's a tough world, man. It is a tough world. All you can do is smile and walk through the walls and go from there. So yeah, and obviously the season's gonna be soon, you know. Tune into us and we'll make sure those laughs happen. So yeah, Chip off the old block, cheers, man. So for the support for Paul. Seed says Bobby Poynton is 21 and scored 10 goals last year, 7-point average rating, very good. Look, bro, you know, right, listen, look, I'm gonna be honest with you, Seed. You know a lot of young talent in lower leagues. I think this is good, you know, and maybe you should do something on YouTube with that. So yeah, but I'll have a look at him. I'll have a look at him when I get a chance. So yeah, Mick says, we play Bromley. We do play Bromley. Yeah, that's the one. I was only looking on Google, so I do apologize. Teddy says, yeah, Scott, he means Madsen. Yeah, Scott. This says no QPR. Mick says, Wickham, Florentina, Bromley, and our last preseason games. I thought we had Wickham for... Don't we have 6 preseason games? We have had 2. We got 4 more, I thought. Teddy says, yeah, Wickham. The Wickham one, Steve Cook, that's going to be a crazy one, I'll be honest. Paul says, cheers for the block. I'm doing better. Thank you, mate. Cool. Listen, look, right. We're going to get into this serious now because obviously not much, not much, fucking northern here, not much has been said on transfers. But we have had obviously Seller leave. So Seller obviously has left QPR. If you haven't seen the video that I put out on Friday, I think it was, or Saturday, it was yesterday actually. I put a video out there on Seller leaving on the channel, as well as Kevin Betsy being appointed assistant, and I think I should have put that in there as well. But yeah, so Zan Seller has officially left QPR. If you want to know my actual thoughts on everything of it, I won't discuss it in here that much, but if you want to know everything, go tune into the other video that I've posted yesterday. If you've watched it already, give it a like and we'll go from there. But what I will say is this, obviously, yes, Seller has left. He has gone to FC Basel for about 1.5 million for I think a 3-year deal. Now I'm not too sure if it's 1.5 or 1 point something plus add-ons. I'm going to presume there's add-ons into it as well, because that's what QPR do. And I would sit here and say we actually, I think, got a good price tag for him for how he's been for the last couple of seasons. You know, like I said, I felt sorry for him last season when he got sent out on loan, because he just had a newborn. And for any player in football, you know, just to have a newborn and then move to a different country is a nightmare. It really is. I'm not saying I have experience in that, but you could just think of it and just be like, what the hell is our club doing? You know, I get the fact being if it's not in Julian's plans and stuff like that, but have some gratitude in where you send him, you know. And that's my only thought on it. It was so look, like Nick says, we've lost my money on it, but at the end of the day, I feel like we still got a good price tag for him. You know, I was really hoping Salah would actually be involved last season or this season, because I just honestly feel like he's still a Julian player. You know, I really do. I feel like the way he performed at Lugano and some other teams, he's that playing style that Julian would like up front, I would thought. You know, he's not as pacey as Burrell, but he plays similarities of Burrell. He does, you know, in the sense of he likes the ball played in front of him. He likes to through balls. He likes to be a poacher. Burrell is a big poacher. He'll get into the right places at the right time in the box, and it all depending on as well on look. For example, if you look at Marty, you know, I know Salah didn't have the greatest days with Marty Fuentes, but you know, it was good to see him score at Cardiff twice the way he did. You know, I thought that was going to be the start sign, and we did see some glimpse of it after that Cardiff game, but unfortunately he did get injured straight after that, and it looked like it was a serious injury. So yeah, you know, Salah to me is always going to be someone that I will watch. You know, he's 27 years old, I believe, and I did watch him at Roma. I did at a young age. You know, he looked like that guy that was going to burst onto the scene, such as like the Gyökereses, such as like the Seskos. You know, he has that similar build, and hopefully all the best to him at FC Basel. You know, I'm not going to say he's going to make it a big way now, but I feel like he's gone to a country and a team that he possibly could do well with. So we'll keep an eye on him, see what he does, and goes from there. But as far as I'm aware, Salah, it's good to see him in the sense of getting off the books now if he isn't going to be wasted on loan. So, you know, we got a bit of cash through some of these sales this season, and hopefully we can use that to bring in some sort of talent, depending on what Julian wants and what he thinks that can be fixed into this team. But all the best to Salah. I really hope he does well at FC Basel. You know, like I said, I'm a big fan of him, and I hope for all the best. Going on to there, Kevin Betsy has been appointed assistant for Julian for this season. Now, I wasn't going to address it, but someone did put a comment in. I don't know why, but someone put a comment in the video about Kevin Betsy about it was to do with money, and apparently I was talking a load of shit or something like that. I'm not sure, but listen, look. Kevin Betsy is 100% not about money. It's about the fact being whether if Julian wants him to be assistant at the end of the day. Julian's not going to sit there and allow someone that he doesn't feel like is going to be the best suited candidate for that role. You know, Kevin Betsy's been with this club since Marty Fuentes, and he's always impressed us. He has. You know, he's been an outstanding coach. He's been an outstanding player coach in the sense of working with these young guys and older guys to be very the best person that they can be on the field and make sure that they're playing in a way that can be great for them. You know, there is objectives that they put out on these players and accomplishments. It's quite weird, but it's actually doing a good job it is right now. So I'm very happy to see that. Now, what does this mean for Kevin Betsy moving to as an assistant? I'm not sure, but all I can say is he will obviously learn a lot under Julian. He will. And, you know, obviously Diarra's left to go find a head coach role. And for what I would say is this, I would say the same thing as what what Diarra's done will end up happening to Kevin Betsy. You know, he wants to probably become a head coach. He done extremely well pretty much for us when it came down to that last game against Sunderland when Marty Fuentes departed. And it looked really good playing style it did. Even if Xavi was a part of that in the playing style, what Kevin Betsy was trying to do. But we beat a top club, Kevin Betsy did, and he looks impressive. So hopefully this helps the defensive line. I know he's been there, like I'm saying defensive line like something's going to change. But I'm hoping that they've looked at the defensive line of last season and hopefully have seen the mistakes and they've corrected it, you know. And I'm working hard on the training ground is going to help that. So, you know, Kevin Betsy, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does under Julian. And yeah, hopefully all of you guys, I'll think of it as a great move for us. I personally don't think it's to do with money. I generally don't. I genuinely think it's to do with the fact being that Julian wanted him. And if it was the case of Julian didn't want him, then it's a bit of a stupid move in my opinion. So yeah, like I said, him or someone like his assistant that he had at Rennes and Strasbourg is something that would have been great. But yeah, Kevin Betsy has obviously come in and become the assistant now, and hopefully we get to see something different next season, as well as pretty much the same stuff, obviously, but not the mistakes that we used to see in defense. So yeah, let's have a look at these comments before we get into the serious nitty gritty stuff with who someone mentioned the other comment the other minute. Definitely will be there for the watch along. Then when the season starts, we'll be there 100%. Miss the weekends without the watch along. Honestly, you know, the watch alongs I enjoy, man. You know, there was a glimpse, like for example, I know you lot don't want to hear this, but obviously going on to mental health reasons with like what Paul was saying, you know, in January it was very close for me to be like, you know what, I don't want to do this, that kind of thing no more. There was like a really lack of motivation for me, but I stood by it, kept going, and you know, I'm feeling much better and gone past that those demons, as you would say it, to continue this. So yeah, but that's also because of you guys, man. I love chatting to you guys. This is good therapy for me, man, and I enjoy chatting away and watching games with you guys, and it's amazing, man. Honestly, it's amazing. And only you guys, you know, I'm only the chatter here. You know, you guys make this channel, in my opinion. You know, and that's how it is. You guys support me in doing what I'm doing, and you clearly enjoy it. So, shouts to you guys all the way, man. Honestly. Would you go QPR v Millwall or stream it? I'd probably stream it, mate, because I'll be honest, I've had bad experiences with Millwall. I'm not gonna lie. If you've ever been to the away ground, not a great place to go, or especially on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. So yeah, I'd probably just stream it, I'll be honest with you. So yeah, it says we have 3 preseason games left on the official QPR website. 3? I thought there was 4. They must have cancelled one. I thought there was 6 preseason games. I guess they've cancelled one, because there was one behind closed doors, I'm sure there was. So yeah, unless they've had it already, I don't know. Nick says, no, we lost 300k on Seller, but glad QPR got rid of him. Not because I didn't rate him, but I wish him the best. No worries, Nick. Listen, look, at the end of the day, look, we lost a bit of money for him. You know, all the best to him. But let's see what happens with the money that we got. You know, with everyone that's been disappeared and gone, we should have cleared a lot of wages for people and a bit more money to bring in some talent. So yeah, sorry, I'm itching my nose. I don't know what's wrong with my nose today. It's really weird. Seed says, did you hear Sella was fighting other players while on loan? I did not hear that whatsoever, but thank you for letting me know. I'm actually going to Google that now to see what was going on. Where did you find that out? Nick says, DB, how much do you think QPR have got roughly to get another 3 signings? Listen, look, we got money. Listen, QPR's got money. The owners have got money. But it's all about financial fair play, you know? And right now, like I said, constantly what Julian has said and what Nuri said at the end of the season, we have to get rid of players first to sign players, you know? There's people that we've brought in that we know that we needed to bring in to fill in those gaps first, like Boy Kemper at left back, and obviously the two keepers, you know. But the only reason why we brought the two keepers in is because the two goalkeepers were going out. So yeah, would I say there's going to be more signings? For sure. There's been no links. Obviously, people have said on Twitter that there's been bids made, but they've been rejected. But no one's announced what those clubs are or who those clubs are. So yeah, but I would sit here and say we're at least going to be expecting at least 2 or 3 more signings. So yeah. Paul says, thought that was a good deal for Salah. Thought he might have been released to get him off the books. If it didn't go through, I would presume he would have asked to terminate his contract. I'll be honest with you. It would have been a Taylor Richards scenario. So yeah. How long is the new contract with JS signed? Anyone? I don't know. Chip off the block. It'll probably be 2 or 3 years, pretty much. So yeah. I think it was a 2-year extension, but could be wrong. Paul says. Nick says, with JS, I'm not sure, but I would take a guess at another 2 years. Paul says, did anyone hear Marty going to manage in America? I did not hear that. That's something that I would actually probably be interested in looking at, I guess. Nick, with the fingers crossed. Sorry, Chip of the block with the fingers crossed. Nick says, yes, Paul must have got desperate. Totally agree with Nick, but yes, get a good payout when he gets sacked. Paul says, but what do you? I totally agree with Nick. With what? All right, I think I know what you mean. C says, I saw it on German media newspaper. If you search up, I'll have a look at it. I will. Chip, Lim. Nardi Hamer, Walsh, Murphy out. Lee says, good to see you, Lee. Thank you for tuning in. Chip off the block has obviously done a retracted message. We have to be financially savvy. Don't want to end up like Oxford. 100%. I agree with that, you know. And that's why we have Christian Nuri in. Listen, if we had Les Ferdinand still, we'd probably be in a shitter. I'll be honest with you. And that's no offense to Les. I think Les was a great football player. But as a business guy, he wasn't the best, you know, and I'm going to be honest with that. You know, he didn't put QPR in a great position when we went to the Premier League and we got relegated and then back to the Premier League, you know, and then we decided to take a different approach and make only signings from League One and make sure that we only make 10 grand a week signings. So, yeah, you know, I think we have Christian Uri and, you know, he's been an outstanding CEO for us, or whatever the job role is that he has, football director, whatever, you know. He's very impressive, he is, and he's done some great deals for us and sold some great players for great money. And you know, I feel like as long as he's here, we're going to be in a good position to sit here and say financially we're going to be okay. You know, the owners back him. Everyone who's a director backs him. You know, Amit definitely backs him. So I would sit here and say we got something good going on with him. And I would say we shouldn't be put into that prospect of any situation unless we screw something up where we make serious stupid signings and get relegated and, you know, go from there. But I have full belief in whoever we sign next. So yeah. Apart from that, guys, let's talk about the only big news left, and that is Burnley interested in Ronnie Edwards. So, Burnley this week have obviously lost a centre-back, or last week I should say, in Esteval. You know, Esteval has left Burnley, and they clearly want a centre-back, and Ronnie Edwards has been pictured or been profiled as a candidate for them. Now, you know, should we be worried? I don't think so. I don't think so. Unless the clubs sit here and say, Burnley have offered us 10 to 15 million, then okay. You know, they're probably going to be like, this is a good opportunity for us. But if I was them, I would stand out for that, and I would wait it out until we get a better bid for him. In that sense, I'd be honest, I think he stays. I don't think he's going anywhere. You know, if you watched the last video that came out for QPR, where Harvey Vale and him were playing a game of darts and talking about next season or this season, that to me, it proves to you right now he's not leaving whatsoever. He loves his time. He's not going anywhere. He's definitely not going anywhere. I like Ronnie Edwards. You guys clearly know I like Ronnie Edwards because I kept bragging about him when we needed him on loan and also when we needed to sign him, you know. So first thing first, I would sit here and say that Ronnie Edwards, let's not worry about that. I think he stays. Don't see him gone. On Burnley, I just feel like it's a rumour at the moment. Burnley need to make a bid for him. No bids have been made for him, as far as I'm aware. But Burnley are interested, and I just don't think he goes. You know, I feel like in the next couple of seasons, he's going to be worth a lot of money. I reckon 20 mil, personally. I reckon we could get a good wage for him. I honestly will sit here and say, if he works hard enough and joins, you know, leaves us or stays with us if we ever go to the Premier League, or when we go to the Premier League, I should say, I reckon he gets shouted for England. I really do. I really think he's that capable of potential to be the next English centre-back. I think he's brilliant. I think he's great. You know, I've seen some great centre-backs in England coming up. Obviously, they haven't really had the opportunity under the new head coach for England. You know, obviously, Harwood Bellis, another great player. Doyle, another great player. You know, and I would honestly put Edwards in that category of them centre-backs, you know. He seems to be at the right club right now, and I believe we keep him. I believe he stays. I don't think he goes. I feel like it's just a rumour right now for Burnley. I think Burnley needs to go look at someone else. You know, Sheffield United have someone. Go over there. Leave us alone. But the bid, if they do make a bid, it gets rejected straight away. Unless the club see it as a good profit margin, 20 mil, they will discuss it with the player first, obviously. But I will sit here and say Ronnie won't leave. You know, Ronnie's only been with us for, half a season, and obviously on loan and everything like that. But technically, he's only been an official QPR player for half a season. And I don't see him leaving. I really don't. You know, he's settled in. You know, he's probably got a nice place somewhere with, obviously, family connections to QPR. So I honestly will sit here and say he's fine. He's staying at QPR. Don't see him going. You know, I think, like I said, I think he becomes QPR captain one day. You know, that's how good he is, you know. And we have a lot of potential in that squad that could become anything in that area of captains for QPR. You know, right now, the one centre-back that I think does leave is Jake Clark-Salter. You know, that guy is probably going to leave soon. Right now, preseason wise, he's fit and ready, but if he does get injured again, we're pretty screwed with that. We're pretty screwed. So right now, Ronnie Edwards not going anywhere. Stay confident about that. I'm confident about that. So yeah, I wouldn't worry or hesitate anything about Ronnie Edwards. Now, let's have a look what this says. Nick says, been really impressed with our outgoings, especially Murphy for 500k plus. Sell on and experience for Walsh, so well done, Nuri, keep going. Mick says Ronnie loves QPR, he won't leave. Like I said, I agree with you so much on that one. I really do. Nick says say okay for 15 mil, then it will be go away. Look, 15, 20 mil, whatever it is, I still don't think he goes. I really still don't think he goes. I think he stays at the club. I think he stays with us for next season. But I don't see him leaving unless a serious scenario happens where he wants first team football or a bigger club coming for him, let alone Burnley, you know. If Bournemouth came in for him or Tottenham or someone like that, then I could see it probably being, yeah, he leaves. But right now, Burnley, nah, no way, not so whatsoever. Mick says, and we have no reason to sell him. Very true. Paul says, yeah, if we get a stupid offer, we accept, but don't see Edwards leaving us. Sid says, sideways move. If he went to Burnley, he deserves Premier League. You know, look, the way they talked in that video of Vale and what Ronnie said, it wasn't scripted whatsoever. It was actually just passion for them that was saying it. And like I said, I generally think Julian is going to be the one head coach that gets us promoted in the next couple of years. You know, whether it's this season or next season, you know, like they said, top 8 is there now. You know, we got to fight for top 8, and that's the objective. You know, top 10 is objectively what I would sit here and say, but top 8 is that playoff. Let's get a chance to get to the Premier League type of thing. So yeah. Paul says, did anyone watch England last night? It was a hell of a game. It was alright, but it seemed a bit dodgy to me, you know, from first half to second half and the way it performed. So, yeah. Lee says, agree Edwards would have signed a long contract. QPR wouldn't sell cheap. QPR would not sell a player unless it's a player that has been brought in, or, you know, at a certain age. You know, we're not going to bring in players that are 30 years old on long contracts or whatever. You know, I officially will sit here and say that, look, Steve Cook is probably, you know, we got Jake Clock's but Steve Cook is pretty much our last survivor of the 30-year-olds, in my opinion. I think it was, you know, we had Nardi, who was 30 something as well, but obviously he's gone as well. So yeah. Edwards had a bad time at Southampton. He will stay. He loved that QPR in 2 spells. 100%. Look, Edwards, you know, Southampton, you know, there was clearly some, you know, some sort of thing there that they didn't want him, you know. I honestly believe when they brought him in, it was because of his potential and obviously the price tag that they could get him for. And I'm guessing they made a bit of profit from him. But at the end of the day, I've wanted Ronnie at Edwards since he was at Peterborough. You know, I've rated him at Peterborough for a long time. And the problem is this. When you have an England youth international that is really good and plays for Peterborough, they're going to price him big, you know. I'm not saying in a 20 mil section, but in a section where QPR wouldn't pay at that time when he went to Southampton, you know. Look, he clearly states that he has family, friends, whatever, that QPR supporters, and he feels like he's at home. So, Edwards, for me, 100% is gonna be a no-brainer in staying at QPR. That's pretty much it. It sums that up for me. You know, I think, you know, like I said, unless the club speak to him when a 30 million offer or something like that, or Real Madrid come knocking on the door, then that's when you'll be like, okay, cool, he's gone, you know. Unless he sits here and be really realistic, you know, most of our players should end up thinking like Eze, where they shouldn't move to a bigger club. If they do move to a club where you're likely going to get chance to be grown and given game time. You know, Ronnie at Crystal Palace would be a good shout. But, you know, that depending on what happens in the future. But right now he stays. So, yeah, that's what I would sit here and say. And I'd be confident in saying that. And I'm hoping you guys are not worried even losing that guy. So, the only thing right now, in sale-wise, obviously, you know, I think we've now officially got everyone on that list that they said that was in discussions for contracts, I think have officially gone. I'm not too sure. I can't remember what else it was, but I'm gonna actually have a look to find out what it was. Let me go on to Twitter on the squad list that they took to Austria again. It's gonna be somewhere here. Just give me a second. There is something else I want to talk about as well, which I've heard, but it could be completely wrong. So yeah, give me 1 second. I'm just looking for this Austrian photo. In fact, I think I might as well just do this. Here we go. So it's just Dixon Bonner. My apologies. Dixon Bonner is the last person to pretty much discuss his future at QPR. I don't know what's going on with him. He obviously went out on loan to the same club as Emerson Sutton last season. But I'll be honest, I see him getting released. You know, I don't see him staying. You know, you obviously got Dembele staying. You got Colley that's staying, I believe. Ziad Lakesh looks like he's staying, and Santos looks like he's staying. So these are players that Julian probably wants to assess more before thinking of selling. But I think majority of the time those players, yeah, I think it's more because of their last year contracts maybe, and going from there. So yeah. Jay, you can go away about with Tuchel. We trust, man. I'm not going there, bruv. Forget Tuchel, bruv. He's finished, bruv. He's finished. But yeah. Apart from that, there was one thing that I was gonna discuss. So apparently, they was saying that Dele Alli is training at QPR at the moment. Now I don't know whether to believe it or not, but I have heard rumors about it as well. I honestly don't know if it's going to be just training or if it is that Julian's interested in him, sorry. Listen, the wage would be hefty. I don't know if he, obviously with how he is right now, I don't know obviously with wage cuts and stuff like that, how he would be. But if Dele Alli did come, there's only one thing that I would sit here and say why I would want him. If he fixes his act up and all this fucking partying bullshit and all of that, then okay, cool. I'll be happy for him to be at QPR if he's gonna work hard like he was as a young kid. But right now, I just be honest with you, this whole thing with, you know, partying and all of that, it's just you know, it needs to fuck off, in my opinion. Mind my French, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. You know, I want players that want to play for the badge and want to be themselves. But there's a time and place for being you know, a child, in my opinion. So yeah. Dixon Bonner is not even National League standard. Well, Dixon Bonner played for Liverpool youngsters, so that's why we brought him in, because he was a very good youngster at the time, and obviously Mike Fuentes or whoever it was that brought him in rated him very highly. So yeah, Nick says field for Dixon Bonner looked promising when playing under Marty, but never progressed again. Like Salah, I wish him the best for whatever the future holds. The problem with Bonner is that it's just injuries. He got injured and he fell back. So yeah, Dele Alli hasn't played a full season fit since 17-18. Mate, Dele Alli hasn't been Dele Alli since 17-18. So yeah, yeah, I don't know what to say on that one. I think it's all bullshit, but apparently he has been pretty much apparently training at QPR. I'm not too sure, but Fabrizio would have told us about that if that was true in that case, especially how rated Dele Alli highly was back in the day. Don't know if he is right now, but listen, look, Julian, for me, there was only two midfielders that I wanted at QPR this season, and that was Jordan James and Dan Neil. Those two players are the ones that I'm very intrigued by to work with Madsen. But then again, if how Isaac is playing right now, Isaac seems to be that guy that I'd probably be like, you know what, we have a player in our academy that has proven that he should give an opportunity for. So yeah, Dele doesn't have the hunger breakthrough player this season. I hope his 19-year-old Swedish midfielder Isaac. I agree, Lee. I really do, man. Isaac deserves it. Isaac's done well. You know, he's got a couple of more games in preseason to prove himself. But even then, again, we are still going to see more players as well, because now we're back from preseason. The preseason people that they put in there, that's scrap now. So anyone from the academy and whoever's left will be featured in probably the game time. So if anyone isn't featured, like Collie or whatever, then I would be suspicious about it. I would be very suspicious on that one. So yeah. But apart from that, that's pretty much it for today, you know. We've gone 50 minutes again, pretty good. Gotten through a lot today. A very exciting news with obviously sales and obviously, you know, the new assistant, or not new assistant, but appointed assistant in Kevin Betsy. Hope you guys put comments below about that. Chill of the World says, so DB, who are your top 3 signings that QPR should go for? So for me, do you know what? I'll do it now. So for me right now, in the areas that we need, so at number 1, no, sorry, let's go count down, right? So number 3, right, would be Jordan James. You know, Jordan James has gone to Rennes last season, or 2 seasons ago. from Birmingham. He did go on loan to Leicester last season, and he did score against us a really good cracking goal. And I honestly believe Jordan James is that good midfielder that I believe that Julian can work with, that could do so well. So Jordan James is at number 3. Number 2, I'm only going to go with positions that we need. Number 2 would probably be, I would sit here and say right now, oh, it's a tough call, you know. If we're going to go with creativity, I'm going to go with creativity for now. So for me, do you know what? Actually, forget creativity, right? Forget creativity. I'm going to go left back Harry Amas. Harry Amas at number 2, you know. I don't think it's going to happen, but Harry Amas has gone out, gone on pre-season with Man United. I can't remember where they've gone pre-season, but Wrexham did beat them yesterday 1-0, and Harry Amas did play, and he got played quite a bit. So that tells me Harry Amas might get an opportunity next season, but if we do sign him, it'll only be on loan. So yeah, Harry Amas at number 2 for left back. But even with Boy Kemper in and obviously Ziad Lakesh, I don't think it's happening. Number 1 for me, obviously, look, the weakest area for me right now is right back. You know, I know we got Adamson, Amadou Mbengue, Brew, or whoever it is, and right back, Santos. But for me right now, the one player that I want at right back is probably Terry Devlin. You know, Terry Devlin, for me, is that name that I would bring up in the same category as the Vales and the Ronnie Edwards that I've brought up constantly to try and get into this club. You know, I constantly went on about Ronnie Edwards and I constantly went on about Harvey Vale for 3 seasons. And Terry Devlin is that right back that I feel like would work well under our system, just because he is defensive and attacking. He can play as a number 8 as well. He is very pacey and very strong on the ball, and I believe his crossing ability is phenomenal. You know, he's got a cracking shot on him, but he does like to get into the box at times, and his set pieces are brilliant as well. You know, Terry Devlin has obviously proven in the Portsmouth games that we've played against him, has scored against us on Boxing Day last season. So for what I've seen from Terry Devlin for the last 2 seasons, I've been very impressed, you know. And the other thing reason why I want him at QPR as well, is if you think about it this way, and I only thought about this a couple of weeks ago, Terry Devlin is from Northern Ireland, and he plays for Northern Ireland. And we have another player in our pitch that plays on that right side, and can play left, that plays for Northern Ireland, and that's Paul Smith. You know, Paul Smith could work his magic with these two playing, with club and country, and they would understand each other's playing style. You know, Terry Devlin to me reminds me of those type of players that have come up from the Championship to the Premier League, such as names like the Andy Robertsons and all of them guys that have gone into the Premier League to become great players. Terry Devlin is one of them players, in my opinion, is one of them guys. So for me, Terry Devlin has got to be a number 1 signing for QPR. I know he's probably not on our radar. I'd be very surprised if he does become a player on our radar, but Terry Devlin for me is someone that I can see doing some incredible stuff on that right side with Paul Smith. And, you know, I feel like the way Julian plays, the right backs and the full backs, or whatever, both sides, they need to have a bit of pace and strength to them, you know, in the way I see it. You know, he does like to use them as either wide wingers or cut inside. But the way Sato was playing as well in pre-season, I think Boy Kemper is going to be that guy that's going to be a complete wing back, so as whoever we bring on the right back scenario. You know, Amadou is doing the same thing, but I feel like Amadou would perform a lot better as a centre back. But even with Ronnie and Jimmy Dunn there, you know, Amadou will not get that much game time if that was the case. So right now, it's hard to say about Terry Devlin. So yeah. Chip off the block says good shout with all 3, but they all will not come cheap. 100%. But listen, look, in this day and age, nothing's going to come cheap. Look, Ronnie Edwards wasn't cheap, and that's why we got to look at our budget at the end of the day, you know. Terry Devlin's going to come up to about 3 to 4 million, like Sato was, like Madsen was, and all of these players was. So I would sit here and possibly say that It's going to be hard, but they're just players that I would love to see at the club under Julian, you know, because I feel like these are guys that could do really well in the Premier League as well. So yeah, Lee says Harry Amas is more left wing back, a great talent. Would love to have him even for one season. You can see Kevin Betsy gets on with the players really well. Oh yeah, 100%. Kevin Betsy, like I said, I could probably see him as a head coach one day. Maybe not for us, but for a different team. So yeah, Mick says I think we should experiment with Don at right back again. Listen, look, there's a chance that it can happen. But I would say the reason why we shifted him as centre back again is because when we was playing the teams in Julian's way, when we played Coventry and Preston and all these guys at the start of the season, last season, the weakest area was that right side. Kieran Morgan was just getting battered completely in defensive ability. Jimmy Dunn was as well. And the thing that I don't know if you realize is when we played those first couple of games that we didn't have any strength or height in that middle. There were just so many mistakes. And as soon as he shifted Jimmy Dunn into centre back, it changed the game completely. You know, and it looked a lot better. You know, Kieran Morgan to me is a great player, great youngster to come up, and I think right back is just a bit more different. You know, I like Amadou at right back and the defensive abilities, but when he's on his attack, it's not that great in my opinion. So for me, I feel like we need to get another right back in, but it depends on what happens. You know, I'm very pleased with the business that we've done, and you know, going out as well. But right now, I think we need to focus on the team that we have, because we probably are going to use a lot of the youngsters this season, just because of, you know, budget wise maybe. But also, Julian, the way the signings are coming in a bit slowly this season, I would sit here and probably also say that Julian is trying to find the players that suit him the most. So that is a good sign. So yeah. But yeah, that's everything for today. I know we tried to end it about 10 minutes ago, but that was a good question from Lee. I believe it was. Just remember, it was chip off the old block. My apologies. But yeah, that's my views on that part. So yeah, but listen, look, I want to end this quite quickly because the World Cup final is about to start, I believe. Is it 8 o'clock it starts, or is it let me just double check. I thought, yeah, 8 o'clock. So it starts in about 5 minutes. Apart from that, guys, thank you for tuning in. Again, like you said, we're always live on a Sunday with our latest news of QPR. Great stream again. Thank you to you guys. Let's give a shout out to Paul, man. Honestly, stay strong, brother, and all the best for you and your family as well. All the best. So thank you for tuning in. Fantastic show again. Keep it going. Have a great week. Cheers, Lee. You too. Shout out to you guys. Nick, thank you, man. Cheers to you. Chip off the block. Lee, Mick, Paul, and DJ. Who else we got in here? We got Seed as always. Who else is here? I gotta go through all of these names. Chip off the block. I'm not sure if I said that name already. Teddy as always. Scott, thanks for tuning in. Sorry, I'm just literally going through all the names that I can see on the comments. I believe that's it. All them guys are in the chat. So shouts to you guys. Also shouts to Ryan as always. Foley, Robert, Patrick. Is it Patrick? I think it's Patrick. Yeah. So and whoever I've left. Pete as well. Westwell Pete. No one can forget Westwell Pete. Like I said, last week, Pete does a YouTube thing as well with QPR. He does some shorts. Go check him out. Honestly, Westwell Pete. Honestly, go show him support. Tell him I've sent you guys over. So yeah. But apart from that, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the episode, the live stream today. We'll catch you. Obviously, we'll be putting out some shorts this week as well and some more news. Like I said, we won't be live this week on Tuesday, I think it is, or Wednesday for the live stream for against Wickham, I think it is. We won't be live for that whatsoever. And apart from that, have a great evening, you guys. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you want to, as always. Peace, love, positivity, and we'll catch you next week for our watch along. Catch you lot in a bit, people.